Hi, I'm Melinda Van Fleet, and welcome to the Good Karma Success Coach podcast. I'm a success coach, speaker, and business consultant, and my husband Ryan and I were laid off at the same time 10 years ago. We moved to the Florida Keys without jobs, not knowing anyone, hardly any money, and we'd never even been here. But we made it, and now we're living our best lives. And all along on our journey, I've said that someday when we get our quote-unquote shit together, we will help others. Since then, we've both done a lot of self-work and built successful businesses. So that day is here, and one of my ways of paying it forward is through this podcast. Each week, my intent is to be relatable and bring you tactical tips, tools, share my learnings and stories that can help inspire or transform you wherever you are in your career or general life and make an impact. I strongly believe that if I can do it, you can do it too. So what's stopping you? My guest today is Dalia Kinsey, and Dalia is a registered dietitian. She is a school nutrition specialist, and she's also a fellow podcaster. And in the beginning of the podcast, I share a little bit about how we got connected, but I want to just say that this podcast today is extremely relevant to probably how the majority of us are feeling about our body image in regards to our change in lifestyle that's been going on for the past 2 months. And I just really hope that everyone can share this with a friend or family member that may also need some support, and just a big virtual hug right now, because there's a lot going on, and our eating habits and our movement habits are probably just a little different. So again, please share this with a friend or family member. As always, I would love a rating and review on Apple. And please feel free to check out my website, thegoodkarmasuccesscoach.com. I have a new freebie, and I've started a monthly newsletter. So things getting done in quarantine. So anyhow, enjoy. On to the podcast. Thanks for listening. Hey, Dalia, how are you today?
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me on.
Awesome. I am so excited to have you on the Good Karma Success Coach podcast. We met when we were both presenters at the Women's Child Free Summit, and I loved your presentation because not only did you share a lot of great tips on healthy eating and having a healthy lifestyle, but you also went into the mindset behind healthy eating and how to feel about yourself and what you put in your body. And it's something that I think we all struggle with on some level. And it's something that I've never talked about on this podcast personally, because it's just not my wheelhouse or expertise. And I've never had any guests on the podcast that have that as their expertise. So I was super excited when you said that you would be on the podcast.
This is such an honor. Thank you. I'm excited to be the first one. Yeah, just like with your work, mindset is the key to making change consistent and fully integrating changes into your life. If you're having to memorize a list of rules or really striving for individual goals that don't connect to the way you think and the way you operate and your overall values, it can become tedious to keep working toward the changes that you want in your life. But if you change the way you see something in general, then everything you do is different, and it just becomes a natural part of who you are. So like we were talking about before we started recording, there's so many people right now who are freaking out over unplanned weight gain related to what we're going through right now. People are at home, their shopping routine has changed, the access to food that they have is a little different from what's normal. A lot of us are sitting at a desk all day, working at home. It's funny, you move even less than you would when you're in the office. And I've returned to the office, but like now, I won't even walk down the hall to give somebody a message. I'm sending emails because we're really trying to stay away from each other. So we're more sedentary than ever as a nation right now. Yeah. So it's natural that a lot of our weights are kind of fluctuating upward. But if we already had an established way of looking at food that tells you your body is where you get the cue for eating,
Mm-hmm.
then you wouldn't be as susceptible to changes when things around you change. You know, there would be no such thing as holiday eating because every day it's just quote unquote normal eating. You eat when you're hungry, you stop when you're full, you eat sometimes to entertain yourself, sometimes because it tastes good, sometimes just because you need the energy, but you don't restrict and you have a more balanced way of seeing things. So that's why I really like to stress perspective and just mindset when it comes to eating more so than any kind of diet. Because with a diet, those are temporary, they run their course, they really are vulnerable to any change in your schedule, any change in your life. Like everybody knows when you're on a diet, you don't want to go to a party. You're hoping there won't be any holidays or special days, like any little change, and you're completely thrown off.
Yeah. Oh, that's so true. I had someone else on a podcast who is amazing, and I loved her diet and workout tips. And I seriously sat several times, several different moments, and thought, okay, should I start this program like she does this, right? And I did some research on the web, and I thought to myself, well, how can I do this when I travel several days a week, right?
Right.
And I do feel like when you commit to a program like that, and then you have, you see your body change, your weight go down, you get in better shape, however you want to look at it, then you're right. If you want to get vacation, something changes in your life, often, it might go out the window, and all that hard work is like
Gone.
And that's what I think about whenever I see something. I'm like, okay, if I'm going to do that, like this is a lifetime commitment, because I don't want to go through all the work and then have it, come all back to me,
Exactly.
6 months later. So
that's what really stinks about dieting, is that any diet will work if you continue to stay on it forever. But what we usually do, and it's not our fault, it's how these programs are usually marketed, is we follow it for a time and then we go back to the way we were eating before, and you gain that weight back and then some. So people who are chronic dieters tend to have a higher body weight than people who have never dieted at all. But at the root of that is that we don't trust that we are enough, and we keep on trying to change ourselves. If you want to change your weight because you're really struggling with mobility, or maybe you have some concerns that are way outside of I'm not good enough, or I need to be thinner to be worthy of love, or all the things that we tell ourselves, then it can be legitimate to have a desire to lose weight. But the proof of the matter is dieting does not work. Anything that is going to be temporary isn't going to have a long lasting effect on your life. So it's so smart that when you looked at those plans, you said, is this even sustainable? Like I know I travel, I like to travel. Would this work with traveling? That's what you have to look at whenever you consider making a change. Is this something that really fits in with your life? Is this something that can be sustained? Because otherwise it's absolutely harmful for you to take it on. It isn't even just that it's not going to work and it's not going to stick. It's harmful because when you have that cyclical relationship with food and dieting, it tears up your self-esteem. It tears down your belief in yourself. It makes you feel like you're not achieving or you're failing. And then it can become all consuming. Like we all know those people who every time you see them, they may have other things going on in their life, but the only thing they talk about is what they're eating right now and what their new plan is for how they're going to change their body. And usually this is a loved one or a friend, and you don't care how much they weigh. You love them, you like them regardless. And sometimes you wonder, when are they going to do something else? Is there anything else you're going to do? Or are we just going to diet our whole lives and that's what we're going to focus on and talk about? So I think obsession with weight can be such a distraction. And I think that everybody is here to do more than this, and to see people losing out on maybe doing whatever their real sole mission is because they're consumed with weight management is heartbreaking to me. How can you really live your best life when you are consumed with this one thing that can't possibly be connected to your higher purpose? So I really think attuned eating or body-led eating is important because it also liberates your mind so that you have the room to focus on what actually matters in your life.
Wow, that is so powerful. I have the chills and unbelievable. And I wrote down your quote, "We don't trust ourselves that we are good enough, so we keep trying to change ourselves." That's it.
Mm.
That's it. Oh my gosh, that's amazing. How did you end up down this path? Because it is a different path than most, people out there in this space, let's say the health and fitness space, talk about.
It just started to feel like, so initially I bought into all the diet culture stuff as well, just like everybody else, because it's everywhere. So it's natural when no one is questioning something that you're going to buy into it too. Because since we were children, most of us, I remember, I mean, everything from Slim Fast coming through my house when we were kids to now it's Weight Watchers. And of course, Weight Watchers has changed its branding now and they say it's not a diet, but what do you call something that requires external emotional support and constant monitoring? Like, if that really was just, oh, this is normal eating, it wouldn't be so labor intensive. I do like a lot of the things that they teach as far as the emphasis on the fruits and the vegetables and everything, but it's the counting and the restriction that I think is so hard for people to maintain. But once I finished my degree in nutrition and started working in public health, I really started to see, I did a lot of one-on-one counseling with people at the health department. People were coming in with problems that were so much bigger than their diet. And I just started to question, is the thing that's really making everyone sick their diet? Or is it more likely that it's way more complicated than that? And the reason why we focus on diet is, one, we can blame the consumer. So if people are really stressed out and they don't have an opportunity to be physical because they live in an area where, let's say, there's no sidewalks. So I don't know if you visited Atlanta, but our sidewalks here, they're a joke. Like they start and then they'll stop. So
Oh
I
no.
guess it depends on how your city is cut up. Maybe they had funding to do sidewalks to a certain point, but then it just suddenly stops and then you're walking on the road or something like that. If you don't have transportation to go to a park or to go to the gym, then you can't just get out and walk your neighborhood and feel safe because you're literally in the road. There's so many things that stop people from being able to really get out there and do those health promoting behaviors. But when we focus on the weight, almost like it's a moral failing, then it's the consumer's fault. It isn't that we needed to get it together as a community or as a leader in the local government to make sure that people have a way to be active. It isn't our problem to make sure they have access to grocery stores. It's them. They did something wrong. So it just seems like there's too many people that stand to benefit financially from continuing to blame fatness for everybody's poor health.
Mm-hmm.
And then the only people who would really benefit would be us. And we're not important. We're not, huge businesses. If we really looked at health in a holistic way and acknowledged that, there's a lot more going on here. So I just started to get really suspicious about how oversimplified it was. And then seeing how distressed people were trying to lose weight when they had all these other things going on that were clearly more pressing. I started to wonder if we were helping people by reinforcing that every time they came to us in the health department. And through my own research and that combined, I just realized intuitive eating has far more scientific support than any kind of diet. And also that there are a lot of negative health outcomes that have been documented in relation to dieting. but we continue to put it out there as though it's health promoting when it's not.
Gotcha. How big is the diet industry? Do you know for a number?
I know it's in the billions. It's absolutely in the billions. It's just, it's really insane. Like when you think about it, think of like every program out there that's focused on weight loss, and then every product. And then on top of that, all the bariatric surgery, and I would say 9 times out of 10 people who end up to the point of wanting that were chronic dieters. So had they never been tricked into thinking dieting was going to be a health promoting behavior, their weight maybe never would have gotten to the level that they would have even qualified for it. So it's all kind of cyclical, and that's a ton of money represented there too. It's, yeah, with everything, I think we really have to be critical thinkers, and we need to be critical consumers. And anytime someone's trying to offer us something, wonder whether or not your best interest is incentivized.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like, well, this is kind of off topic, but they've even had to make changes to how 401ks and counseling is done, right? You cannot incentivize something that hurts the consumer and think that people aren't going to go for it. So you have to make it so that when the business wins, you won too. And the way the diet industry works, when we win, it doesn't help the industry. We need to keep failing to keep pouring the money back in.
Oh, wow. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. So they don't want you to really lose weight and keep it off.
Right. For what,
Yeah.
And they don't want you to realize that you have everything you need to eat well and take care of yourself. The same way you would never like try and find a coach for breathing. You probably don't need a coach for eating. And if you do, it's only because you've been brainwashed into not trusting your own body. Right. And it can take a lot of work to get back to that point. But the goal for anyone I work with is for them to be to a point where they don't need me anymore. Like they may check in or may want some reinforcement because everybody around them is restricting, and that, is a whole nother issue. But really, after working with me for a year, you shouldn't need me. Like that's all you have to do is listen to yourself. And it's learning. It's not even learning. It's relearning or revisiting what you knew when you were a child. Like when you see a toddler eat and they swat something off of their, not even a toddler, I guess a little smaller than that, where they swat stuff off of their plate or they swat things from in front of them when they're done because they're like, no, seriously, I'm not eating anymore. I am done. It's on the floor now. Do you get the message? I'm not eating anymore. I'm done. They know. And what happens to that knowledge? When do we start thinking, oh, I don't know. What should I eat? How much should I eat? Follow your body's cues and it'll get you where you need to be. There are only a few health conditions where you actually need to do some planning, like if you have something going on with your kidneys, if you have diabetes, it may be more tricky. But for the average person who doesn't have any kind of health problem related to diet, your body can lead you.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I never thought of it in terms of a kid swatting their food away, but yeah, everyone can picture that in their minds. That's amazing. I remember last year, it was January of 2019, I went to a conference where Jillian Michaels spoke. I'm sure you know who that is.
Oh, yeah.
And she is freaking hilarious. I had no idea. The first thing she said to kick off her talk was, okay, everyone, you want to know what the secret is? The secret to losing weight? And then she kind of did a little build up because she's really funny. And she said, eat less, move more. That's it. That's your secret. It was so true.
And really just following how much your body wants. It's so crazy how many people I'll counsel that say, I don't know why this scale won't move, and then when you really look at it, they're not eating enough. and they'll eat and say, oh, it's been an hour, I can't possibly be hungry again. What did you eat? Oh, rice cake and a slice of an apple. You're not eating enough. And then you see all these people talking about trying to find, oh, what is it in my diet that's bothering me? A lot of times it could be a sensitivity, but I'm finding now more often than not, the problem is they're not eating enough. And all their symptoms go back to not eating enough. So it's just interesting. The people who are really, really engaging the most with diet culture seem to be the ones who are eating the least, even though they still feel like their weight's too high. It's really, really interesting how we can convince ourselves something else is the problem, but we don't want to visit the possibility that we're not eating enough. I don't know if you've known anyone with an eating disorder, but I know in my experience, they'll come up with a million different reasons for why their hair is falling out. And it can't possibly be that it's because they're starving, you know?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's a mess. Like, it's really, really hard to not be saddened by it because it's like women are primarily the victims of diet culture.
Mm-hmm.
Think of all the other things we could do with that money. Think of all the vacations we could have taken,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, seriously. I've tried. I've never been one of those completely, like, I don't know if this is the right way to say it, but like not so, about dieting, but I've definitely done my fair share of trying this and that, when you said, slim fast in the house. And yeah, I think I did the rice cake and peanut butter thing years ago.
I remember that. Yeah.
Memories. And I'll try like a bar, some of those bars, thinking, oh, can I replace the meal with a bar? And then I'll eat the bar. And then like a half an hour later, I'm hungry again. And I'm like, okay, like that really didn't suit what.
Didn't do anything.
Yeah. So I was like, okay. And I just ate, 250, 300 calories. And, there's a lot of things out there that are 300 calories that can be almost a meal. So you just really wasted some calories, really, if you're then going to eat something after you ate that bar.
Yeah, it's crazy how some of those products that are supposed to be meal substitutions turn out being a snack for most of the people that buy it because it doesn't satisfy you.
Mm-hmm.
I recently interviewed a chef, and I had never thought about this before, but he was saying that having some umami flavor, like, I don't know if you've heard of umami, like Beyond, are usually, the usual flavor profiles that we hear described. It's like a deep savory type of flavor, and that word comes from Japanese, and apparently they've known longer than we have that we left out a descriptor for food flavors. But something like meaty or something like mushrooms or toasted nuts, like that type of taste, he said he feels like you're not going to be satisfied if you don't have that in a meal. And his theory was that every time people just have like fruit or white bread or something, because they didn't get that umami flavor, they're never satisfied. Oh. And he's a big meat eater, obviously, so he might be a little biased. But I definitely believe there are multiple things that go into you feeling like you actually ate something. And when you don't have it, then that ends up being a snack, not a meal that makes you feel happy for hours. And I don't think you can get whatever all those factors are in one little highly processed bar that's posing as a health food that's darn near a candy bar. Like, they're so close to being candy bars. And nobody ever eats a candy bar and thinks that's a meal, Well, maybe kids do, I don't know. But adults know that's a snack. That's a fun food. I'm going to be hungry again in a little bit. This is just temporary. But then we buy these other products that cost way more than the candy bar and expect it to miraculously hit the spot. You need fiber. You need for your belly to actually have had to stretch a little bit so that your body can sense, oh, we're done eating. So if you eat a salad that has mostly leafy greens or a lot of beans or something that is bulky, you will get so full and comfortable at way less of a calorie mark than if you're eating something that doesn't take up any space. Like, perfect example, if you're drinking your calories, if you're having sodas or sweet teas or something else sugary, you could drink 7,000 calories and never feel like you're full or satisfied easily.
Wow.
It has no bulk. It doesn't stretch, those receptors in your stomach are not going to get a message that you're full and you're done.
Mm-hmm. So you just wasted calories. Like look at that bucket of wasting calories. You hit the nail on the head. I think of a Kind bar, and I like Kind bars, so I'm not ripping on them. I know it's a very successful company, but often I've thought, okay, this box of Kind bars is, what, $8, something like that. And it's a meal replacement, has the same amount of calories as a Snickers bar.
Yep.
I could eat a Snickers bar and be totally happy and satisfied. And the Kind bar, half an hour later, I'm hungry. So yeah, there is a lot to be said for really doing a deep dive on those bars and really what is going on with them. So
yeah, it's really interesting. And you have to remember, like, and I'm not trying to hate on any of these people who are just trying to make a living,
totally.
but then their objective, it's a business. It's
Yep.
a business. It's not about helping people be the best version of themselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so you have to question, it's different when you're dealing with somebody one-on-one. A person has a conscience, they have a soul. A company doesn't have that, is not a person. So we have to be extra cautious when we're engaging with these, big companies. When you're dealing with somebody one-on-one, there are a lot of coaches out there who feel like their mission is to help make people's lives better. And I'm more inclined to trust one person working with me, you can buy them out and all, than I am to engage with like some massive corporation. I really look at every product one by one and see, is this really for me? Because sometimes the purpose is just to create something that's so delicious, people will want to eat it in large quantities. So be careful. Is that really what you want? And even though some calories, we call them empty calories or wasted calories, if you wanted it, if it hit the spot, then it's not a waste. But if you didn't even want it and you were eating it to stop yourself from eating something you actually wanted, well, then yeah, it's a waste. Like, if it didn't even bring you any pleasure and you're still going to be hungry later because it did not hit the spot, that's not good.
Yeah. No, and that is totally the way to look at it. That just is really smart and makes sense. Yeah. So if you want the donut, so that's my example, because I like donuts. So yesterday when I went to Publix, I got one donut with sprinkles and it made me really happy. And that was it. I was good. And actually, a donut fills me up. People can argue with me on this, but honestly, one donut fills me up. So I was good till lunchtime and really happy. And it was
that's awesome.
and that was great.
To me, that's perfect, because people who say a donut can't fill you up, they maybe have never eaten one the way you do. Like, if you eat it slowly and you savor it and it's just what you wanted, why can't it?
Right.
Everybody's different. You really notice, like, people usually pay more attention to what naturally slim people are doing, but usually they don't ever think about food. And when they do, they don't put all of the morality behind it. It's not like, oh, I was bad today. They just had a craving for something. They got it, they enjoyed it, and then they moved on. It really is good to take notes from people in our lives that have had stable weight for a long time, not the ones that do it by constantly restricting. Like, there are probably people with eating disorders who stay on the same weight. You want to ignore them. Don't follow their example, but you know who I mean. Like, the people who always seem to eat what they want and they always look exactly the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
those are the ones.
Yeah. And that too is when I heard you speak at the summit, I resonated with that thought process as well, because I'm just really happy that at my age, which is 49, I can still fit into all of my clothes that I've had for, this is embarrassing, but 15, 20 years. So,
That's awesome.
and yes, some days are better than others. Right now in quarantine, I definitely feel a little bit like bigger in a way. But I know I've just been sitting at my desk more. And when this is over, I'll go back. You know what I mean? Just
Exactly.
feeling like a little lighter. But yeah,
That's perfect. Yeah, you're the perfect example. Even the way you relate to donuts and because like there are people out there who say, "Oh, I can't have that. I can't have that." And their weight is always up and down, up and down, up and down. Now, it's natural for your weight to change and your body's always changing and it fluctuates. But like you said, this thing that's going on with us right now, this is a temporary situation. So naturally, when this temporary situation is gone, someone who eats like you is going to drift back to where they were.
mm-hmm.
Those of us who have kind of a tortured relationship with food will get down on ourselves about the weight gain, then we'll start restricting, and we won't get back to where we were.
Wow. And I never thought about the restricting and yo-yoing, I guess you could say, with your weight,
Right.
that really ends up making it worse for you over time. I never thought about that before. So I
Yeah.
think a lot of people can probably resonate with that and go, gosh, yeah, it makes sense. I've been yo-yo dieting. My weight goes up 30 pounds and down 30 pounds or whatever over the course of their lifetime. That, yeah,
Right.
you've kind of jacked yourself up a little bit.
Yeah,
So,
it's so unfair when you think back, because most people can think back to when they first went on a diet, and it was to lose like 5 pounds. And then it's like 50 pounds later or
mm-hmm.
100 pounds later, you're like, what is happening? And then to hear people say, oh, well, you have no self control. That's the reason why you've gotten fat. When in reality, the concept of restriction is what has done this to you, and everyone endorses it. Like if you go, I remember I was like 24, I think. I had a running injury, which now I know it was from having flat feet and not having enough arch support. But I think I weighed like, I don't know. I was a lot thinner than I am now. And they were like, have you thought about, maybe losing some weight, because that extra pressure on your joints, it really makes a difference, blah, 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 blah. And that's where diet culture also can end up showing up at a doctor's office.
Mm.
Even back then, I wasn't technically considered overweight, not even by their BMI charts. But the first thing that people tend to think for a lot of issues is weight's got to be the problem. Weight's got to be the problem. When a lot of times it's something else. But the diet industry has done such an excellent job of convincing us of things that don't have enough, science to support it, that we believe that. So it's ridiculous that what I actually needed, a podiatrist now is trying to saw on my feet. I'm not trying to do it because he said I wouldn't be able to walk for 6 months. I'm
Oh
like,
my gosh.
I don't know about that. But I basically should have had special shoes as a kid, and now I would be golden. I used to make fun of my husband because he had to wear like special shoes as a kid. And now that we know that my running injuries are all related to my flat feet, he's like, oh, who's the dummy now?
Oh,
I wore the special shoes and I have arches. So anyway, but for people to keep trying to say, like, everywhere you go, your weight is a problem, your weight is a problem, the weight is a problem, when we don't have any proven way to help people change their weight. Why would we keep recommending something that could hurt people? We know that dieting can hurt people. It can trigger eating disorders. It triggers weight cycling. It triggers low self-esteem. We don't know for a fact of an intervention that helps people keep their weight off for life. So why would we keep recommending dieting? We're at first do no harm. Like that's the rule, but it's everywhere. So I don't think people should beat themselves up for participating in that, believing in that, falling prey to that. What else were you supposed to do? That's what everybody's saying. But the good news is now we all have so much more access to information. It isn't just, oh, the only people who can get messages to you are the people who have millions of dollars for advertising. You can get information from everywhere now, thanks to the internet. You still want to be cautious about taking advice that could be harmful. Like, recently people started ingesting disinfectant. Not a good move. Not a good move. But
Yeah, oh my God, don't go.
that's like a whole nother thing. But
How stupid of people.
it's just insane.
Yeah.
See, that tells you too, it's like how much we assume there's such a thing as common sense.
Right.
But it's not true.
Right.
So we all have to be more critical thinkers. And a lot of us have been beaten into just believing whoever you're told is in charge.
Yeah.
That's what they make you do in school usually. So there are plenty of times when a child is right and an adult is wrong. But when you're a child, that's not the story you're told. The adult is always right, which we know doesn't make any sense. But think about how trained we are to just follow orders. We have to stop that. We have to question, what does this company stand to benefit or gain by me believing what they're saying? Let me take a couple extra steps. Let's see what, maybe their competition says, or maybe some other doctor says, or some other scientist says. We just really want to look a little deeper and make sure that we're getting the best information for us.
Yeah. Wow. Dang, girl, I could talk to you for hours because I'm like, everything you say kind of makes my brain go, oh, yeah, I thought of it this way. Or we could talk about this rabbit hole. Like, oh my gosh, you've just packed a punch. I'm so grateful. Oh my gosh.
Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah. Any tips for someone if you could just kind of like sum up like, these are just some things to keep in mind that maybe someone could take a note on to help them, especially now if they do feel they're a little out of balance with being home.
Yes, I would say try and be kind to yourself and try to really look at what you need right now to take care of yourself. So a lot of times we reach for food when we're needing something else or we're hungry for something else. The thing that stinks about that is if you're not physiologically hungry, you will never be able to be satisfied. You cannot eat your way to satisfaction when you weren't hungry to start with. So try and slow down and see, do I need more personal space? Do I need to get up and physically move? Am I overwhelmed because there's so many people in the house right now? Am I feeling lonely because there's nobody in the house right now? We're all having different experiences. And try and meet your needs that go beyond the food. Because really a lot of us are eating just in response to the stress and in response to other needs that we feel like we don't know how to get filled right now. And then 2, remember that it takes about 20 minutes for your brain to get the message that you're done eating, which definitely happens naturally if you eat slowly enough. So enjoy your food. It tastes the best when you first start, assuming that you're actually hungry. And as you continue to eat, the taste gets less and less stimulating. That's one way your body's telling you you're almost done. And then when you give it that time, you'll really feel that you're done. So just give yourself some time to hear what your body is telling you. And be nice to yourself because you didn't get to this point overnight. This is a very stressful time. And all you can do is offer yourself some compassion.
Wow. That's amazing. And I didn't know, number 2, about the 20 minutes. It's been something that I think I inherited from my family that we're all fast eaters. Mm. And obviously I can take ownership of that. I'm an adult, but that's really cool. I never thought of it and I never heard that before. So thank you for sharing both those tips. They're beautiful.
Oh, you're welcome. That's why I really think people who live in European countries where they have really long lunches and they really focus on food, I think that explains a lot of the difference in the weight. Like we say, well, why can the French people what's up with all that butter? Like, it's not right. It's not fair.
Chocolate.
When you see how long it takes for them to eat, it's mind-boggling for an American. It's like, are we still eating? Are we still eating? And the portions are smaller because they really want to taste it. And they know that if it's a really big portion, you only taste the first 4 or 5 bites anyway. So it's just the whole style of how they eat that makes them thinner. And then they give us a hard time as Americans. I'm like, but I have a 30-minute lunch period. You don't understand.
Yeah. We eat as like it's a task. Does that make
Yes,
sense? Versus for enjoyment.
that is so true.
And I know that is definitely something I could work on. It's like a task, and I don't know why, but that's obviously something I can work on myself. So very cool. So how can people connect with you and follow you?
Yes. So I would love for everybody to visit the website to get a little bit of a handout, a guide, so they can get a jump on trying to eat more intuitively. And that's at daliakinsey.com/guilt-free. That's DALIAKINSEY. And on Instagram, I'm the Body Liberation RD.
That is very cool. Wow. I'm just so happy you're on my podcast, selfishly even. So I hope that my audience enjoyed it as well. I hope everyone out there really enjoyed this podcast and learned a lot. And, if anything, just makes you think, makes you really stop and think. And that's what is a huge takeaway for me. So very cool. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And thank you for all the work that you're doing.
Oh, wow. Well, back at you as well. It's fabulous. Thank you, Dalia.